these alphabet name collages. And if you recall, last week we talked a little bit about adding contrast, resizing, all the above. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk a little bit about getting these images to fit and resize nicely. All right, so I'm going to click on my image. And we talked a little bit about contrast. So one of the things that we can do is go up to Image, Adjustments, Levels, right? That'll adjust our contrast. We can also change our images to black and white. So we learned that we could go over here in Image Adjustments, Black and White, and that will change each image to black and white, right? So we did that with all of our photos, got them all nice and black and white to look all kind of blended. Now there's many ways that we can change images to be black and white in Photoshop. This is one of the easiest ways to make each layer black and white. Now we also learned that we can adjust contrast, right? So if I click on my letter, I can go up to Image, Adjustments, Levels. And this is that pie graph that we looked at last week, and that allows us to increase the blacks in our image and increase the whites in our image to give us more true contrast. And that's something you always want to do. When you put a Photoshop or a photo into Photoshop, you always want to enhance its contrast. All right, so today what I wanted to talk about was what we call layer styles. Okay, now layer styles are options that we have to enhance layers, such as add a drop shadow, such as add a outline, such as add some really interesting kind of details. So I first find the layer that I want to work with. So I'll start with my H here, click on it. I'm going to double click on this layer. So when we activate a layer, right, you can grab your move tool and click on the picture here in your image, right? So I click on my H. Then I go to my layers menu, and you're going to see that the layer that is there is highlighted. So I'm going to double click in this open gray space in the layer here, right in this highlighted layer. And I get this menu that says layer styles. Now there's tons of different options. We have blending options, stroke, shadow, glow, outer glow, drop shadow. We're going to first start with stroke. Now stroke is exactly what you see here. It's an outline of the image. So obviously the orange looks kind of weird. We're just going to go black. So how do we change the color? Well, you're going to choose this little orange color box. You're going to choose black down here and click OK. Then you're going to see that you can increase the size or decrease the size, whatever that may be. So I'm going to go about, something not too thick, not too thin, just like that. Click OK. And then I'm going to go to my next layer. So I'll grab my move tool. I'll click my next letter in my picture. I'll double click on the layer. I'll click stroke, and it automatically saves our presets. And then I'll do that with each letter. Double click on the layer, choose stroke, make sure it's black, click OK. Move tool, click on the letter, click on the layer, stroke, click OK. Click on the letter, double click on the layer, click stroke, and click OK. Now the last thing we're going to do is we're going to add a nice little drop shadow to this, and that drop shadow is going to allow us to give it some depth. So I'll grab my move tool, I'll start with my H. I'm going to double click on the layer again to open my layer styles. And now I'm going to go to drop shadow. And I'm going to actually click on the word drop shadow to pull up this little editable menu. Now we're going to want the blend mode to be multiply. We're going to want the opacity, and that's how dark, right? You can see in my picture there how dark my shadow is. You could probably do about 60. The angle is the direction, so as I click in this little graph, you're going to see my drop shadow changes. I'm going to go about 120, right? 120, 140. I like that it drops down to the right corner there. Distance, we'll want about 58 or 60. You'll want your spread, which is how far it spreads, to be 0, and your size to be about 60. Everything else, we're good to go. And same thing, you'll just click on your image for the next layer, double click on your layer, and check drop shadow, and it will add the same drop shadow to each image. So you'll go ahead and do that with each one. Lastly, we're going to crop these down so that there's not so much white space. So we're going to go to our Tools menu. Yours might be a little different than mine. I have to click these three dots. And the crop tool looks exactly like the crop tool in your phone. So we'll click crop, and you'll get these little toggles, and then I'm going to simply just crop it down and crop it down so that it's even around all sides. Just like that. And I'll click the checkbox. Mine's a little messed up just because I had to transfer it, but it would crop it down to that size. So we've reviewed how to go in and add contrast and change your images to black and white. We learned how to add an outline around each picture, and we learned how to add a drop shadow to each picture. Lastly, we're going to talk about how do we save this so we can submit it to Canvas. Well, first we're going to save a Photoshop copy. So we're going to go to File, Save As, Alphabet Name Collage. We always save it to our desktop, and we're going to keep it as Photoshop. And click Save and click OK. Now, when we save things to be submitted for Canvas, we cannot submit Photoshop documents. We have to export as a JPEG. So I'm going to go up to File, Export, Export As, and I'm going to choose, this little menu will pop up. I'm going to make sure it says JPEG, JPG, and I'm going to click Export. Make sure it's your name or name collage into your desktop and click Save. Now when you submit your Canvas or submit your photo to Canvas, please, please, please make sure you submit your JPG file. I cannot grade a PSD. Alrighty, good luck.